Hey guys, Mr. Ruscom here. Before episode 2 starts, I just wanted to let you know, with new podcasts come new people, new equipment, and unfortunately when we sat down to record episode 2, we had a bit of an equipment malfunction. Unfortunately, Dave and I didn't realize this until after we had finished recording the show. But fear not, we fixed the issue, and from here on out, every episode should sound as clear as it did in episode 1. I do apologize. Episode 2 is still fine, just it's going to sound a little bit different than the previous 2 episodes, but it's still great. Please give it a listen, and we'll talk to you soon.
He became so powerful. The only thing he was afraid of was losing his power. I'm afraid you're here sooner than expected. It's treason, then.
To Jar Jar.
Oh.
And his untimely demise.
Okay. Do we really know if he died, though?
Well, we're going to talk about the Machete order, and they don't even bring episode 1 to the picture, so...
Right. But he does exist in that order, in the Machete order.
I don't think he could, well, because he's in episode 2.
Yeah.
Somebody has to be the fall guy.
Yeah. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to All Things Star Wars, the greatest Star Wars podcast in the galaxy. I'm Mr. Jason Roscom. With me here is the Han Solo to my Chewbacca, Dave Martin. Hello, Dave.
I see. I'm glad you said that consistently.
I know.
You know, it's like, what did he say the last time? Let's see if he's going to F this up. Because he already did denounce me as the Han Solo, so.
That is true.
I do have more hair than you. I guess it's... does that make me more Chewbacca or Han Solo?
Just on your head. Like, if you look at the rest of me, I'm like...
This is true.
There's a reason why they called me Teen Wolf in high school. And it's not because of my resemblance to Michael J. Fox, so...
I'm just going to leave that. I'm just going to leave that alone.
So this is episode 2 of the podcast. The episode 1's been out for about a week now. How do you feel? You feel like we're legit yet?
It feels like it just happened. Like I haven't had really time to really kind of wash myself in it because I've been researching so intently for episode 2. So, I can't wait to get this one in. And honestly, it might be one of those. Maybe I don't listen to myself on these. I'm gonna let the viewers and let the listeners tell me how it was.
All right, fair enough. So we're just gonna hop right into it this week. To start off, I want to ask what we've been doing as far as Star Wars, our week in Star Wars. So, do you have anything that you want to throw out there? Anything you've been doing this week regarding Star Wars?
So for me, I'm into the Thrawn book.
Right.
I got to a point after I finished the Aftermath series that now I want to read Thrawn and Tarkin. I got the Thrawn book. I'm about halfway through it, so hopefully by the next time we're on the air, I'll be finished. Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll be prepared to do something later on with that.
Yeah.
And then I have Tarkin queued up right after it in paperback. Did you know? Sidebar. Mm-hmm. Did you know that Tarkin? Like when I looked at it, because I have all these other books in hardcover. Maybe I'll get Tarkin in hardcover. Mm-hmm. Because I kind of missed the boat when it first came out. I wasn't really that interested.
Right.
And thanks Rogue One for making Tarkin relevant again.
Yeah.
I was looking on Amazon. They want $50, $60 for a hardcover version of Tarkin.
Jeez.
If you can get it. I didn't really do that much research in eBay, but I'm like, I wonder if the popularity maybe of Rogue One, maybe it's like, well, no shit, nobody bought that, and now it's out in paperback, so maybe it's like the hardcover people wanted it, and they just didn't release that many of them.
Well, when did the book first come out?
Tarkin?
Yeah.
I think it's been a year. I mean, it's been a while. It was out for a while.
Okay, so it came out, maybe spring or summer before Rogue One came out? But I mean,
should we go with yes?
Yeah, but it's regardless. It's all part of the new canon, right?
Exactly.
It's not like it's several years old. It's within the last year or so.
Well, I can tell you right now that when it came out, I had no idea it was going to be. I didn't even think it would be a part of Rogue One at all.
Right. Yeah. Because at this point, we didn't know much about Rogue One at all. We've seen maybe the first trailer. But I don't think we had any hint that Tarkin was going to be in Rogue One at all. Even leading up to the release, I don't think we saw any previews of CG Tarkin. I think we maybe had just heard rumors that he might be in it.
Did you know his first name was Wilholf?
Tarkin?
Yeah.
I did not.
Thank you, Wikipedia. Anyway, I think Tarkin's actually been out for quite a while.
Yeah.
It was one of those when they talked about eliminating the expanded universe stuff. This is one of the first books that came out after the fact was Tarkin.
Oh, okay.
So
could this have possibly been before Force Awakens came out?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
I could certainly see the demand for the hardcover not being there and then them not printing many of it.
It was just an interesting sidebar. I feel like maybe people avoided it because it didn't have any relevance maybe in their world. So like, yeah, whatever. So some diehards bought it up and, then it kind of fell by the wayside. But after Rogue One is when I decided I was going to buy the book and the hardcover was gone. I mean, I got it in paperback. I mean, I only paid a couple, $4 or $5 on Amazon for it, but I'll let you know how it works out. I'm sure we'll talk about it some more.
Oh, sure.
But I got to get through Thrawn first. I'm enjoying it so far, though. Thrawn?
Yeah.
It's a good reach back. It's a good reach back character.
Yeah, better than a reach around, I guess. But
it all depends on who's giving it. Come on, Jason. It's all about perspective.
Well, and I absolutely love what they're doing with this book because Timothy Zahn wrote this new Thrawn book, right?
Right.
He's the guy who wrote the Heir to the Empire series, which is it was the first novelization to take place after Return of the Jedi back in the old expanded universe. He created the character of Thrawn, so it's only fitting that they're bringing him back to reintroduce Thrawn into this new expanded universe. So I really love the way they did that. How many times has he used the word grimace in this book so far?
None that I've noticed.
Okay, because that was one thing that bugged me about that Heir to the Empire series was every other paragraph it was Thrawn grimaced as he pondered this, and he overused that word so much. I'm like, God, stop it!
Do you know what? I think with this book in particular, there may be some deliberate... The character's already been in the canon, right? Now it's been introduced in the canon.
Through Rebels, right?
Through Rebels.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing in this book is kind of the development phase of like how he became involved in the Empire. Mm-hmm. Like that's where I am halfway through the book. Is like it's his involvement in the Empire and like where he gets to where he ultimately ends up. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of developmental stuff. There's a lot of internal monologue that plays into the character, where it's written as like you can tell that he's reading people as he's interacting with them.
Right, and that was like one of his abilities back in the old expanded universe was his ability to really analyze people and get a read on them, like you said.
And as you're reading it, you pick up on that. And there's some other characters that are in it too that are, I don't want to give anything away. It's one of those where if you want to really, when you're having that hankering for some Star Wars material and you don't necessarily want to sit there and watch it on the tube, some of these books are perfect for that. Like, hey, if you're at the beach this summer and you want something to read Star Wars related, go for it.
Yeah.
I would recommend that with all these books.
Yeah, and we will get into deeper reviews of a lot of these books, but we'll preface them all with spoiler alert or whatnot. So we're not just going to just randomly throw details about these books out there without giving you some sort of notice beforehand, because I've got a book I'm going to talk about here a little later, and I'm not going to spoil any of the details of the book, but I may make a couple of comments about it.
Yeah, definitely. In the future, when we do these episodes about book-specific stuff, as long as we preface it with some spoilers. Yeah. And, with the expanded universe stuff, hey, if you haven't read it, it's not canon anyway. It's just very entertaining.
Right, so, the old expanded universe.
The Legends, otherwise known as.
Yeah.
So I still haven't found the Tarkin timeline.
You've been Googling it this whole time?
Son of a bitch.
Like, I'm sitting here thinking he's like texting his wife, I'll be home soon, honey, I promise.
Yeah, no. Not so much. They're good. They're good without me. They don't expect me for a while yet.
Good. So, all right, anything else you've been doing Star Wars related in the last week or two?
Aside from, my cousin who's a fellow Star Wars nerd, gave me the print that I showed you, the Han Solo print, and it looks like it's something that they produced for the theater.
Yeah, it was like promotional material for theaters.
For the theater, and it really, really neat. It's about placemat size. Mm-hmm. It's a picture of Han Solo in the pod for the laser turret.
Yeah, it looks like a lithograph that like a celebrity would sign, at a convention.
Right. If it was, I guarantee my cousin wouldn't have gave it up. But
right.
It's something that his mom found in the attic of her mom's house, and just something that was laying around, and and it needs to get touched up a little bit before I put it in a frame. But it's definitely going to be a frame. Maybe at some point I'll take a picture of it. We'll throw it up on Instagram.
Yeah,
so people can see it. But really, really neat. Just to it's from 1977. It's part of that original release. It's Han Solo, in his glory days. Yep. So very, very neat. But other than that, just, taking my opportunities to read some Star Wars stuff when I can and avoid Facebook spoiler nonsense too.
Yeah. God. We talked about it last episode with spoilers, but that's one thing we will not do for you guys. We will not, if we hear like, oh, we found out that Lando Calrissian is actually Rey's dad, we won't spoil it for you guys if we get any inside information.
Is that something that's out there?
I didn't want to just come out and say it, but she's the illegitimate child of Lando and Leia. You didn't know that?
That would be an interesting plot point. I'd I'd like to go down that rabbit hole for a minute. Not today, but write that shit down, man. That's actually pretty good. I like that.
Yeah, you may hear our own crazy oddball theories like that, but no, we will not spoil anything for you guys because we would like to preserve the first time experience for everybody when it comes to not just the movies, but the books, comics, everything. So as far as what I've been doing Star Wars wise over the last week, well, first of all, I finished the Bloodline book.
Finally.
Yeah, you so generously loaned me a little while back. We won't get into how long I've had it in my possession, but I finally had an opportunity to sit down, mostly on a plane, for multiple hours, and I got to finish it, and it was actually really good. If you're going into it expecting like all these grand revelations, you'll probably be disappointed, much like you will be with all the Aftermath books, because the thing that they've been doing is they've been giving you just little nuggets here and there. Little bitty bits and pieces to kind of start filling in the blanks, but they never just like overtly come out and be like, oh, this happened or whatever. It's small, subtle things, but a lot does happen in Bloodline. It does fill in some of the blanks from the post Return of the Jedi world. I really enjoyed it. It's filled with a lot of political stuff, which that's one thing that's always intrigued me about Star Wars, and we're going to get into it a little bit when we talk about the top 5 characters, but I've always been intrigued by the political aspect of Star Wars when it comes to the governments that run the galaxy and their failures as a government to run the galaxy and all the conflicts that can happen and the corruption and all that. That stuff's always fascinated me.
No, we're not talking about episode 1.
No.
Like trade embargoes.
Yeah,
and stuff
Trade
like
Federation and all that. No.
We're not talking about the NAFTA of the Naboo.
No,
I
mean,
not talking about that.
If it was written better and performed better, I might have been.
Not an entire episode of 2 hours of Star Wars on it?
Yeah, not the way it was presented in episode.
I just want to, I'm giving you a chance here because I agree with you. I like there is some aspects of that, like how the Empire taking power and how the Senate would work, and and this something so much bigger than the galaxy and these multiple worlds and races and everything else. Yeah. It is interesting. There's an aspect of it. However, I think we've already been on record as trashing episode 1 because of some of that nuance. So just make it clear for the audience members that
well, and I think it'll become a little more clear once we get to our top 5 characters. I'll just leave it at that. Otherwise, some other big things that have been happening to me. Sorry for the distance.
You want this over there too?
No, that's all not Star Wars stuff.
Okay.
So I do a lot of thrift store hunting. We have a couple of really good thrift stores in this area, in the South Jersey area, between Goodwills, and you watch your hands.
I really want to touch this.
All right. It's my Star Wars stuff, not anything else. Yeah, over the last couple of weeks, I've been hitting one particular thrift store, and I picked up a whole bunch of Star Wars video games. So
remarkable.
Dave is pouring through them as we speak. So
he found how much. All right, so this is a original Nintendo Game Boy Star Wars cartridge.
Just Star Wars.
Yeah. With the classic Luke pointing a blaster, Leia and Vader, and we'll have to take a picture. You have to take a picture of this, and we'll post it on Instagram.
That's what I'm doing right now. This is live, so you're going to see a picture on Instagram as we're recording live of Dave holding my Game Boy cartridge
with no hat on. For whatever reason, I took my hat off, so forgive my hat hair.
Yeah. I
don't know why I had to say that out loud, but whatever. There it is. But yeah, it's fucking amazing. Have you tried it?
Yeah,
it works.
Yeah, and that one was $3, I think. So I tore the price tag off already.
All right, so then you have a Game Boy Advance, Star Wars: The New Droid Army, which I don't think I've even played.
I've never even heard of that before I bought it, but This was only $2.
You got Lego Star Wars, the video game. That's the original one.
Yep, also $2.
And you got Star Wars 2, the original trilogy. That's
Lego Star Wars, right?
Lego Star Wars, yeah. So what's amazing, I own the Lego Star Wars, like every piece of equipment that I've gotten.
Sure.
I've gotten a Lego Star Wars. Just 'cause it's such a playable game. We could do a whole podcast about Lego Star Wars, honestly.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Like, your thrift store exploits are legendary.
Yep. Top game we have here is the original Xbox Star Wars Battlefront, the very first Battlefront, which I think that was also $2, if I'm not mistaken.
$3.
$3.
Is that what that means?
I can't see it in the light. Okay, yep, $3. So the first Battlefront was all right. We're talking the original again. We're not talking about the one that was just released 2 years ago. We're talking about this one that was released probably in 2003, 4.
2004.
Okay. Damn, I'm good.
Look, it's available on HD TV 480p.
Ooh, shit. So
really moving up in the world.
All right. So then I also got the Xbox 2-pack. It was Tetris Worlds along with Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which I think that was also probably.
I've never played this game either.
Yeah, that was $2.
In fairness, I didn't have Xbox. I was a PlayStation guy all the way up until the 360.
Yeah, I was always Xbox more than PlayStation, going all the way back to the original Xbox.
Yeah.
So then we have this monstrosity.
The Kinect
Star Wars.
So again, having not played this, and it sounds like you have.
Well, have you not seen any of the videos or anything from this? Okay, so this was after Xbox first released the Kinect on the 360, right? With the motion and all that shit.
And you could buy the special Xbox with like it had like an R2D2 cover on it.
Right, and it had the camera, and a lot of games that took advantage of that were dancing games, like dancing rhythm games.
Yeah,
where
I had the Kinect for the 360.
Yeah, that's what half of this is a dancing game.
I have seen shit like this.
Yes.
Isn't there like a whole R2 and 3PO like disco dance?
Yes, and there's a Han Solo one. There's one where Boba Fett's dancing. It's the biggest abomination to everything Star Wars, but it's also fucking great.
So dance for your life as you entertain Jabba the Hutt and other characters. That's awesome.
Because,
Can we... That's awesome. It'd almost be worth putting in just to watch that scene.
There's YouTube videos out there.
She doesn't have enough. She has way too much clothing on for the Jabba the Hutt scene.
Yeah,
it should be Leku and then nothing.
But I'm telling you, it's the absolute worst, yet the greatest thing you'll ever see as a Star Wars fan.
But you could become a pod racing champion.
Yeah, which I haven't actually played any of this, but I fully intend to because I do have a Kinect, my old 360 over there. That's
spectacular.
Yeah, so these were my thrift store exploits. I got a bunch of other games too, not Star Wars games, but
again, I wish I knew where these places were because every time I go into a thrift store near me, and I only live friggin' 4 miles from you.
Yeah, it's like 5 or 6.
5 or 6 miles. Any of the thrift stores I go into, they have like a PlayStation 1 game that looks like it was used as a coaster.
Yeah. Well, of course, this thrift store is in the opposite direction from that I would go from you. Plus, I'm just not going to tell you because I don't want you to snake all the good deals.
Dude, I'll camp out there. Like, where are the people that are giving these games away to these?
That's what I want to know. And obviously, there was a Star Wars fan because like all these were purchased over the course of like a week or two. So somebody dropped off all these Star Wars games. The real find was that original Star Wars game, though, for the original game.
Hell yeah! This cartridge, you need to get the case. You need to get that.
I've got some in that drawer. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and besides that, I've watched Force Awakens and Rogue One over the last week just because. Yeah, because you can see behind you, I've got my 3D Blu-rays of both movies right there.
I do see that.
So. As he steals his book back. Oh, so Bloodline. Yes, I finished Bloodline. I had a couple of notes I wanted to make about that because, first of all, it's a great book if you like the whole political aspect of Star Wars. There were a ton of references in there. And that's the thing that they've been doing in these books is they make these real subtle references that the hardcore Star Wars fans would appreciate.
Yeah.
Like in one of these, they had Leia went to the christening of the new Starship Riken, which was obviously named after General Riken from Hoth from Empire Strikes Back. There was cursing in this book. Mm-hmm. One guy mentioned he was going to kick somebody's ass, and then they started to say something involving shit, but they cut him off before they actually typed the word shit.
I remember in the original trilogy there was some low grade kind of references to stuff like that.
Yeah, not nearly as much, but I already mentioned that it fills in some of the blanks. There's a gay character in this, which in the first Aftermath book there was also a lesbian couple in there, if you remember the aunt of the kid.
There is, and then there's there's a gay character in there as well.
Oh, is there?
Yeah,
I don't remember that, but in this one, just because I just read it within the last couple of days, there's a pilot for the Republic who's a gay character, which, the scene happened to be all these pilots were just kind of hanging out and bullshitting, and it was so funny because this is not a spoiler at all either for this book. It was like 2 pages of this that had nothing to do with the overall story.
And you'll come upon it naturally.
Yeah, but and if you don't want to be spoiled, just fast forward by a minute. But all these pilots are standing around and they're talking about like sampling alcohol, right? And they go, "Oh yeah, I hear Bill's been sampling some ale from Coruscant," and then the author goes in to say, though what everybody really knew was that he had found a new boyfriend on Coruscant or something. Nice. So, it's just like all these pilots just sitting around busting each other's balls, and just the one guy happened to be gay, and he wasn't making fun of him because he was gay. It was just
because he found a new boyfriend.
Right. Because it just like, like if we were a couple of single guys in the Air Force hanging out in our early maintenance days, and I found out you were hooking up with some grenade, I'd be busting your balls about that, So.
What's funny is the subtleties like that you're speaking of, like Bloodline itself in the timeline actually comes after the Aftermath books.
Yes,
so Bloodline
after.
Yeah, so it's Aftermath, Aftermath, Life Debt, and then I forget the name of the third one, but there's 3 Aftermath books.
Yeah.
And then the Bloodline book comes into that series. So if you kind of want to read it organically, you're better off starting with the Aftermath books and going through, because there is, like, I read Bloodline first.
Before the first Aftermath?
I believe so.
Really?
Yeah, so...
No, that's not possible.
Maybe not.
Yeah, because we both read Aftermath before Force Awakens came out.
This is true. But the other 2 Aftermath books I definitely read after I read Bloodline.
Sure.
So it had to, because I was waiting for that stuff to come out on Amazon. Mm-hmm. And I liked that set for a while before I finished it. But that being said, like, if you really want to read it, we're talking, as we're talking about ordering, when we're talking about the order of the movies, like, same thing with these books. Like, if you kind of want to get a real timeline of the story as it leads into, other aspects, you want to read the Aftermath books first,
sure.
and then read Bloodline.
Yeah, because the first Aftermath book takes place a couple months after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
and I think they all kind of followed that same timeline. So I haven't actually read the other 2 Aftermaths. So that's what I need to get onto next. Was first Life Debt, and then the other one.
Yeah, I'll lend those out to you.
I know.
Get your library card.
Yeah, if you could be so gracious. So, moving on to one of our main topics this week. When I mentioned last week that I was a guest on a podcast called So Your Father's a Nerd, and one of the subjects that came up was the Machete Order of Star Wars, and it was something that I'd never really heard of before.
See, and I do remember that because I think you struggled to come up with what the actual terminology for.
Right, because I had to Google it while we were recording the podcast.
Much like this. And by the way, the Tarkin book came out in November of 2014.
Oh.
So it did come out before
TFA. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I think Disney bought Lucasfilm in 13.
I'd have to. I'm not going to spend time Googling that, but I think that sounds about right.
It was after the Disney purchase,
right?
So
it was. I think I'm almost positive it was one of the first things that was canonical, that came out in the new book series for the Del Rey stuff.
Wow. Okay. So there's no wonder why you couldn't find it in hardcover.
Oh, and we can post it on Instagram maybe. But I looked in Amazon again, and I took a screen grab of it. But the cheapest copy I could get used is $181.40.
Jesus Christ!
$4.99 shipping. It went up to like a couple $100 for the hard copy.
I have a feeling you're not that much of a Star Wars fan. So.
No. I own the book. I own that book in paperback, so I will enjoy it.
All right, but Kathy, if you're listening, it could be a good Christmas gift idea.
Don't do that. It's too much money to buy something else.
All right, so Machete Order.
Mm-hmm.
Tangents.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no. That's why we do this show, because we like to get off on tangents.
Exactly right.
When talking about the Star Wars universe.
Excellent.
So the Machete Order was brought to my attention. It's a very fascinating concept. So first of all, this is not looking at Force Awakens or Rogue One. This concept came up before that. And it's a way to watch the movies in, I guess, what some of these people would consider the proper Machete Order. And that is starting with Episode 4, A New Hope, rolling into Return of the Jedi, or not, Empire Strikes Back. Sorry, I've had like 3 beers. And then going back to Episodes 2 and 3 after Empire Strikes Back. So after the Vader reveal, Luke, I'm your father, then you go back and you watch Episodes 2 and 3 to kind of as like a flashback before concluding the series with Return of the Jedi.
Right.
So it's a fascinating way to do a marathon. First of all, I don't know if you have, but I've never done like a straight up Star Wars marathon, like watching.
Not with all of them.
Yeah,
it's tough to hang with it.
Yeah,
just, and not even the energy level like before Force Awakens. Like, oh, I really want to do this. I'm too old for that shit. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it comes down to the point like, I'm really tired. I can go to sleep and start this again later. I don't need to do this to myself, and I didn't.
Yeah, I think I've done it with the original trilogy back in the day.
Definitely. I've definitely done it with the 3 movies.
Yeah, I've never done it with the prequels, but this Machete Order is fascinating. Now, one of the things that they mentioned in this website, and we'll link this website in the show description, but they say it preserves the cliffhanger and the whole reveal of Vader being Luke's father. And then you go into the prequels, and then you kind of see how Anakin became Darth Vader and whatnot, and then you conclude it with Return of the Jedi. It's a fascinating concept, but the big issue with this is, like, who doesn't know this at this point? Like, who are you going to introduce this series to?
And that's the thing. So I think that's a big part of the question is, like, if we're... So I have one of my cousins who this is kind of, he subscribes to this theory about the Machete Order. And, it's the argument of like, well, if you're introducing somebody to Star Wars, which to us seems like it's just a foreign concept. Like, who doesn't know about Star Wars? Like, who am I introducing this to that's not a toddler?
Right, exactly.
So, to me, I'll be 100% honest with you. I think the Machete Order is complete bullshit.
Really?
And here's why. If you're trying to put this in some sort of order where you want it to make some logical sense, where it goes like, all right, well, here's this, and we're trying to eliminate that because we don't like it, and so we'll go back to this because it maintains cliffhanger and things like that. It wasn't written like that.
Sure.
So as somebody who's has basically seen the entire Enterprise unfold in real time, like, you're not going to get me to like buy into that. Like, oh, I hate episode 1 so much that I'm going to completely exclude it, and then explain those characters later when we're talking about episode 2 and 3, because there's a lot of stuff in episode 1 we just don't like,
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, okay, it is the people that hate the prequels that still believe that they have a place in the story.
Right.
That, it's a way that we can squeeze that in there. And then, by the way, you can watch the rest of the movies. It's a conversation that's part of it. Where do you put Rogue One?
Yeah.
Where do you put Rogue One in that? Because now Rogue One, do you just insert it? Like, okay, here we are. Like, are you inserting it before? Is it the first movie you watch and then go into that?
No, I don't think you can, because I don't think you can appreciate Rogue One until you've seen the rest of the movies.
You don't understand what Star Wars is by watching Rogue One. You only understand Rogue One because you understand Star Wars.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you're not all right, hey, you've never watched Star Wars before, here's Rogue One.
Right.
There's no context for it.
Exactly, and that's why Episode 7 has a lot of advantages over Rogue One. Because I know we hear this debate a lot, that Force Awakens versus Rogue One, which was a better movie, but Force Awakens is more of a standalone movie than Rogue One.
I would agree with that.
Because if you just took a human being who had no knowledge of Star Wars whatsoever and sat him in front of these two movies, they're probably going to be able to follow Force Awakens more than Rogue One, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But
I would, again, Project VCR, when we dissect Force Awakens and we talk about all the things, we spent a lot of time talking about, hey, one of the critical things of it was that it had basically the same pacing as the original Star Wars, as New Hope. And there's reasons for that.
Yeah, that was not on accident.
No, and because why, if it's not broke, why fix it?
Exactly.
So we know what this is. We're introducing a new generation. We're introducing new characters. Why not have this pacing? It's not a shot-for-shot remake like some people would lead you to believe, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close.
Yeah.
I mean, even even some of the teaser stuff, can go for shot. But I think that when you start talking about this Machete Order, it really is. It's the whole thing, and even the nature of the article is like they say how the release order is flawed, and that there's all these problems with it, and I understand that, because for those of us that know that the original trilogy is the gold standard,
yes,
and the prequels pale in comparison,
yeah, but
that doesn't mean that it's still not episode 1, 2, and 3, and then Rogue One, episode 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Right.
Like, it's still, it's episodic for a reason. And it's not like it's a Tarantino movie where we're trying to go back in time to talk about this and flash back to this and do that. when has there been a flashback in Star Wars?
Jyn in Rogue One. That's the first time we've...
Well, yeah, because in her dream sequences, and you almost have to do that because it kind of explains some of like where the character came from.
And then maybe Rey's weird flash sequence in Force Awakens, but that was more of like a vision and not really anything.
I like the beer delivery.
Yeah, I know.
Was there a text there that I didn't see that somehow slipped by me?
Yeah, pretty much.
That was good.
So, I don't know, what were we talking about?
We were talking about flashbacks. And, no, I think the difference between what Rey's not having there are elements in Rey's Force dream that maybe go into the past but you're looking at it from her perspective, and I contend that that's not her.
Sure.
In those pictures, those are like her perspective is Luke's.
Right.
So like that's not necessarily a flashback. You could really even say the same thing about Luke being in the cave with Yoda.
Oh yeah.
When he goes into the cave, that's not it's obviously not the reality. There's he's battling himself. In there, they're making some allegory. We can do a whole episode.
Yeah, I think we've got a whole episode planned for that anyway. So,
but I contend that there's no flashbacks in Star Wars. It's not set up for that.
Right.
So by doing it in this order, you're basically inventing these flashbacks for episode 2 and 3 to have that make sense. If you need to watch it in that order for it to make sense, then I don't necessarily think that you understand Star Wars.
Right.
I think if I am introducing somebody, of a certain generation to these movies, I say, I'm not going to say anything about this. Mm-hmm. I want you to sit down. I want you to watch it, soup to nuts.
Okay. So would you start them with episode 1 or 4?
I would. I'd start with episode 1. And here's why. Episode 1 is obviously not the best movie, right? We established that last week, right? But for continuity's sake, you're watching. This is a young Anakin. Let's not talk about the quality of it. Let's just talk about it strictly from a timeline perspective.
Sure.
You're watching a young Anakin grow older with this connection to Padme. Then that connection grows deeper and goes through the line.
Right.
Right. If you're starting at episode 4 when you already have Luke and Leia, why watch episode 1, 2, and 3 at all? If you're trying to save somebody from seeing bad Star Wars, then don't watch the prequels at all.
Right. And see, that's the thing. I'd be more inclined to do that, to tell them, don't watch these prequels and just start with the original trilogy.
I contend that if I sat you down and said, okay, you're watch these 3 movies, and then watch, okay, you watch, here we are. Mm-hmm, now watch Star Wars, watch A New Hope, and then look at, for one, you're going to appreciate what a good fucking movie that is, because it's so much better than the other movies. Even without the CGI and everything else, think of all the accolades we give that movie.
Yeah.
And how it is the perfect movie. It's that perfect movie even after you've drank awfulness in episode 1, 2, and 3. It's going to say, okay, here's, not only do you have the backstory and get to here, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope, and then now we can proceed further. You have an understanding of why Obi-Wan Kenobi is important. Now it helps you understand the characters in Star Wars that much more, and you can proceed further. And by the way, it's a better movie. All 3 of those movies are better.
Okay, so...
And insert Rogue One. And then here's the other thing, and this is why the Rogue One conversation is important. If you watch episode 1 through 3, then watch Rogue One. It's like the sherbet between meals, between plates at dinner, where you're trying to clean your palate. So if you watch 1, 2, and 3, now let's insert Rogue One. All right, Rogue One is getting us to a place in between the 2 things.
It is.
Right? We know, having followed the series, we know that Rogue One does a great job because it makes 1977. It makes all those connections for us that we need for the next movie.
Yeah.
Somebody's going into that clean just knows it as, okay, this is another step to get to the next movie, whatever that is, which you're seeing the lead into it almost by the minute. So now I have a clean thing from here to here. I'm not discussing it. The prequels aren't even mentioned. It's only tacitly you understand that this, the Darth Vader character exists. And by the way, he gets in Rogue One, kicks the fuck out of people. And it's spectacular.
That would be one thing. If you did see the prequels and then Rogue One, I think you would have much more of an appreciation of Darth Vader, because that's
I think you understand it. Go from a whiny bitch, that is, that guy, to, okay, this is obviously someone with a lot of angst, coming and is turned into this evil character. Now you see the evil that is this character going into next to it. So then when he's on the rebellion ship, fucking grabbing a dude by the neck to fucking choke information out of him, you understand it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like, and now it leads into it. And that by the time you get to that point, you're in, and you're watching and you're into Star Wars, episode 1, 2, and 3, now that just becomes a backstory.
Okay, I read everything you're saying. I'm following you. However, my biggest issue with doing it that way would be, depending on the person and, knowing your audience, by the time they watch episodes 1 and 2, they may be like, I don't really want to watch this anymore. They could be like, fuck this series. This is not for me.
And maybe not. But I think it's one of those where, if you're asking me, it's strictly in, like, watching the Star Wars movies, how do you want to do it? If I'm trying to, like, my job isn't to market Star Wars.
Sure.
It really isn't. They're not paying me. Like, if I'm marketing Star Wars and I have to know my audience, then absolutely, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But if you're telling me, hey, I want to introduce Star Wars as a thing, that thing includes, episodically, it goes, 1, we're eliminating Clone Wars.
Sure.
Cinematic release from this conversation.
That can come later.
But we're going theatrical release. I'm going 1 to 3, Rogue One, and then 4 through 6.
Okay.
There's a pace to it, a logic to it, because it was written that way.
Right.
That's the way it was meant to be. So I don't even my cousins will tell you, we've sat in my grandparents' house and had these conversations downstairs, in my grandfather's office where we'd be sitting there eating lunch and this stuff like this will come up and we'll have these types of conversations and they'll do the same. I understand that people like have this bad taste about episode 1 in particular, yes, the prequels in general.
Right. And that's, again, that going back to this Machete order, that's what it's doing. It's eliminating episode 1.
Right.
No mention of episode 1 at all.
And it's written without Rogue One. Rogue One and TFA didn't exist.
Right.
This came out, so it's not even really part of the discussion when you look at it online. But yeah, that's my point of view on that. Like, if you're asking me how is somebody going to sit down and watch it, I'm going to say you sit down and watch episode 1. And let's say I take a kid.
Well, because that was going to be my next point, because there's, a decent chance that the two of us could both be grandparents within the next few years. It's possible.
Shut your mouth.
It is. I'm just saying.
Jason, your kids are younger. I have a 20 and a 17-year-old. Shut your mouth.
Hypothetically, hypothetically, it is possible.
God damn you, Jason.
Human beings are human beings. So your grandkids are around, a few years from now, and you're ready to introduce them to Star Wars.
Oh my God!
Do you introduce them to episode 1?
Yes, absolutely. I am not saying this in a vacuum for sure. It's like I want them to watch episode 1 because the chances are, if they're young enough, like okay, we're going to watch this movie, they're going to be at an age where the animation, the style of it, the softness of it, the characters, and everything else, like as George contends, he wrote this for children.
Sure.
And it's our jobs to overanalyze it and, put our information where we want it. But it's like anything else. Let's push Star Wars aside for a second. Let's talk about Toy Story.
Oh, sure.
So if you look at how Toy Story was written, one of my favorite all-time movies that's not called Star Wars.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, fantastic movie.
And when that came out, my son was very young.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just something that him as an infant, like we would sit and watch, and he'd enjoy it because it was colorful and everything else. But there was enough adult information in there to, hey, there's adult things that are happening here with loss and things like that, where there's a lot of situations where kids don't pick up that nuance. We're there as adults picking up. That's good story writing.
Yeah, no,
because it's engaging us who's sitting in a theater with a kid. We're getting a whole different movie experience than the kid is.
Yeah, the first time I ever saw that was on a date. So
yeah, so what was it? When did that come out?
94, I think.
Was it 94?
Yeah.
Like right when I graduated high school.
Yeah, because it was right before I left high school.
Yeah, but again, that movie, like the perspective of that movie, and you think about it, like if you take that same application and apply it to something like episode 1, where from the mind of a child is looking at it in a completely different way. They're not looking at it as like, well, this character's dialogue seems forced, or why is this kid in here or anything else?
It's true.
They're not going to have that perspective. And if you're all right, here's your 10-year-old, let's say or 8-year-old even. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, you play with the toys and here's Star Wars. Okay. So let's watch this. One of our friends, Nick, with his son, the interesting conversation to have with him, like, cause his son is that age, 7, 8 years old. And like, okay, how are you introducing this? I think he asked me at one point, if I remember correctly, and I basically told him the same thing. I'd start with one and go through. And, he's 8, 9 years old. You're gonna appreciate, glowy things and funny accents and stuff like that. And they're gonna watch it like that. And if you spread it out enough, like, okay, here's this one, as they mature a little bit and age a little bit. Now, if you go shotgun it all the way through, it may not make as much sense to them. It'll probably seem like two different movies.
Yeah.
Like, and not because of they understand what's going on, but because of the tone of it changes.
Right. Because, the prequels are very colorful, especially episode 1. Very colorful, very bright. A lot of quick movements, a lot of flashy presentation. Yeah.
But if you're kind of spacing it out, it's like, okay, here's this kid, and he's watching it through here, and you can appreciate that, and then he'll pick up the characters and kind of go with them, just like you would in Toy Story. Like, kids that watch Toy Story 3 after a couple years before, Toy Story 3 came out a couple years ago, didn't it? It hasn't been out that long.
Yeah, I think it might have been 3 or 4 years now.
Time traveling's rough. But, in that aspect, if you think about it, and if you're spacing out that way, it's like, okay, as a child watching this over a period of time, all those characters, you're following those characters along, you don't remember how the dialogue was. You just remember these are my characters, and then you take them all the way through.
All right.
So, that's my emphatic go fuck yourself Machete order.
Yeah, well, that was a lot to take in, and we spent a lot more time on that than I thought we would. So we're just going to move right into our next segment. And again, listeners, if you have anything that you want to add to the Machete order conversation, hit us up on social media. All that stuff will come at the end of the episode.
Yeah, I'm sure you will too. I feel like I stand on an island a lot of times with that conversation.
Yeah, that was quite a hill to die on there. But hey, you know what? You're passionate. I'll give you that. So, moving on. The other thing that we wanted to talk about this episode, more as a part of getting to know us, getting to know me and Dave, what we're all about, so you, the listeners, can kind of understand where we're coming from. So what we decided to do was we each generated another top list like we did last week. This time we're doing our top 5 characters from Star Wars list. And we did not limit this to just the movies. This can be from any aspect of Star Wars, including the old expanded universe. So, unfortunately, my list was not as daring as you would think, but I think you'll find it interesting. And we have not seen each other's lists leading into this, so why don't you start us off with your number 5, and we'll go from there. And just would you stop making with the noise?
That's all right. There's editing software. Just take that out, right?
I don't. Probably that's not how it works. God.
All right.
So number 5, top 5 characters. Again, this is just our favorite characters. This is just our personal lists. We're not saying this is the best 5 definitive characters.
Just for purposes of lists.
Yes.
Because people love lists.
Yep. And much like last week, I think I'm going to get a lot of heat for this list. More just due to who's not on this list.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
I don't think I'm... maybe I get some heat too.
All right.
My number 5 is Princess Leia.
Okay.
My notes here, I got, besides being my first crush, she's a crucial character throughout the Star Wars universe, and just a great character.
Yeah.
And in particular, like, as we're reading through the books, like, it takes a character that's already really, really strong and developed, and just broadens that character even more. The expanded universe did a good job of that as well, where Princess Leia as a character, they delve way more into her Force ability in the expanded universe than they have in canon. It's almost like they're deliberately avoiding it in the canon.
Yeah. Like, I just read this Bloodline book, and it was completely centered around Leia.
Right.
And there was practically zero mention of her Force abilities.
Exactly. So, expanded universe and in canon, I mean, it's not a coincidence with the Carrie Fisher recently passing away.
Yeah.
It brings it to the forefront.
Yeah.
Like, here's where this character was in our universe. But, maybe because they made her a royalty, when Star Wars came out, she was a princess, and so it had a little bit more of a grandiose feel to the character, like even when we were young. It's like princess this, it just added something to it. You know what I mean? So it was easy to go with, maybe she should be higher up there. For me, it was an easy number 5 because of who I have in my top 4. But she's a big character in this world, and the Star Wars universe wouldn't be the same at all without her.
Mm-hmm. And I watched an interview with Carrie Fisher as they were doing promo work for Force Awakens. And, the big push in Hollywood right now is strong female characters, right? That's been a huge, huge issue with Hollywood and them pushing, like, strong female characters. And they mentioned in this interview, like, back in 1977, Princess Leia was, like, the first one who was, like, a tough, fucking independent, hard-nosed, strong fememale character long before.
Get in a garbage chute, Flyboy.
Exactly, So she was really a trendsetter. When it came to that, long before, like in 3 decades before this became a political issue and a big hot button issue. Princess Leia was that long before.
Right.
So, and you mentioned her Force abilities. Yeah, in the old expanded universe, they did touch on it a bit, but between both universes, the old expanded universe and the current, one theme that's been consistent between the two is her public service. She's always been dedicated to the Republic, to serving the government, to being either the Chancellor in the old expanded universe or a senator in the new universe, and always dedicating herself to that public service.
Right.
And trying to work towards the greater good.
Yep.
So,
the greater good.
Yeah. So, no, I certainly understand, and I will not dispute that choice.
Fair enough.
My number 5, this is probably the one that's going to come the most out of left field, and this is Starkiller. Not the base, but the character from The Force Unleashed.
Okay.
I fucking loved The Force Unleashed, especially the first one. The sequel was decent, but you could tell it was kind of thrown together at the last minute, and it never got the third, and it left on a cliffhanger, and they canceled the third game before they got to finish it. But I loved the character of Starkiller. I loved the Force Unleashed games. I thought he was great. The way they introduced him, the way he was like stolen by Darth Vader as a child,
right,
and then raised as a secret apprentice, and then the way he eventually rebelled against Vader, and they put a whole lot of effort into building the story of the Force Unleashed. I keep wanting to say Force Awakens, just because habit. But yeah, Force Unleashed, fantastic. Starkiller was a really, really cool character, and I thought he didn't get the justice he deserved because of the whole canceled third game. This happened right as the whole Disney buyout happened. And
you know what? I had a feeling that he would make your list.
Oh, yeah.
We went through this thing where I downloaded it. The 360 version was available like for pennies or free.
It was free on Xbox Live last month. Yeah,
exactly. So I downloaded it and played. We had it for the Wii, so but
that was a different game, though.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed it. I see where you're coming from. Like as a character, like the way they portrayed the character and how they developed like him into the story, it would have been great to have something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the irony is that as we get into the books and some of the newer movies, I think you're going to see where that's so plausible for them to have developed a storyline like that. I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but read the Aftermath books and some other things, and you can see where, this is not uncharted territory for what they're doing.
Yeah, and you mentioned books. They did a Force Unleashed book featuring Starkiller, so they got deeper into his character and his mindset and everything, and they get a very tragic character, but just an awesome character, awesome game. And that's one thing that I really do want to keep touching on as we go along is the games, because we're not going to limit it to just books and movies or TV show and comics, and video games too are important. And
definitely
they put so much effort into producing a fantastic story for that game, more than most other Star Wars games we've seen. So moving on to my number 4 is Rey Palpatine. So.
All right.
Okay, just Rey, but I'm still holding on to hope that she's a Palpatine. Just
okay,
that's a wild fan theory, which I know we mentioned we weren't going to get into much other people's theories, but I like that one so much.
That's a whole other episode. We can talk about stuff like that.
But Rey, she's fucking awesome. I mentioned my love for Force Awakens last week when we did our movie order. I really, really like her character, and maybe it's part of the mystery aspect, the fact that we really don't know what her origins are beyond the fact that she's been surviving on Jakku this whole time.
Right.
But much like Princess Leia, she's a tough, independent woman.
Who don't need no man.
Yeah, she doesn't take shit from anybody. Upon further reflection, I think she might be a little racist. because I think she was harder on Finn than anybody else in the movie.
Well, Finn was also hitting on her pretty hard. I mean, she's probably just a little defensive on that.
Okay.
Being a strong, independent woman and all.
Yeah. It just, like, her first interaction with him was whacking him in the face with a pole, so... Hopefully she's not racist. But anyway. Rey is awesome. And it doesn't hurt that Daisy Ridley is fucking gorgeous and just an awesome person. You watch any of her interviews and she's just so cool.
Good follow on Instagram too. Just a lot of fun.
Yeah. But
somebody that's what's great about some of these these cast members, in the Star Wars universe. They love the fact that they're involved in Star Wars. Like it's one of those things where they're so enamored with the fact that they're part of that world now and part of the Star Wars universe that they just if you follow them on Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that, they're all about it, and that makes it that much more fun. Makes social media worth looking at.
Yeah, but I look forward to where they're taking Rey in the future. But yeah, she's just a fantastic character, and I'm just looking forward to seeing more of her.
My wife would 100% agree with you. She would be at the top of my wife's list as far as characters go. All right, so that was your number 5 and 4, right?
Yep,
so it's my number 4.
Yep.
So my number 4 is an expanded universe character.
Ooh, okay.
And it's Darth Bane.
Ooh.
So Darth Bane, for those of you that aren't familiar with the expanded universe, there was a series written. This is like you know what? I should have written down a timeline.
This was Old Republic time.
This is Old Republic, and this is the Darth Bane series is actually where the Rule of Two came from.
Right.
This character was just a fucking badass, and like. It's like one of those tragic backstories and falling in with the Sith and being such a strong character, and it was like it really talks about the infighting amongst like the pupil and the master, and how those battles come about and the tragedy amongst that.
Yeah.
And the guy was just such a raging D-bag. And but the way the story was played out and the way the character was written and everything else, it was just a great read. It's one of those things where I kind of picked it up on a whim. Mm-hmm. And when I read it, I wanted this character to live on, past those 3 books. But it's really interesting when you read the series, and you could probably, go on Wikipedia or something like that, look this guy up, and it'll talk about the Rule of Two and some of his background. So, obviously not canon. It's part of the expanding universe.
Right.
But it's one of those things where even though that's not canon, it takes elements of what we know as canon with the Rule of Two and kind of shows where that developed from. So if they decided to, if they go back in time and make, Old Republic movies,
right,
they can go there with a character like that.
And that's the beauty about that whole era, that whole Knights of the Old Republic era, is that it was so far back in the past, they could go back and make that stuff canon and not fuck up anything that they're doing right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's...
Well, as far as we know, because we don't know. Sure. We don't know where Last Jedi is taking some of the, some of that information.
True.
So we can only speculate based on 2 minutes and 13 seconds of a teaser trailer.
Okay.
It's even that long.
Yeah, but I like that.
All right, so that was my number 4.
Mm-hmm.
All right. My number 3 is Luke Skywalker.
Okay.
All right. So now there's going to be people out there that are going to say that, that whiny Luke is one of the worst characters in the trilogy, and like the character is so far-fetched, like for his Force ability and stuff like that, what happens in Return of the Jedi. I've seen it all.
Mm-hmm.
The fact of the matter is that, again, Luke is an integral character in this world, whether you like it or not. The Skywalker character is what makes up the fabric of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. So,
and you have to take Luke for what he is, especially in Star Wars. Like, this is a young kid who, with visions of grandeur, when the war is playing out and he's stuck on a farm,
mm-hmm.
You gotta play those things out. Why Luke is a number 3 for me and all these characters that are in our Star Wars world has nothing to do with the trilogy.
Right.
It all has to do with Expanded Universe. The guy is a fucking badass in Expanded Universe. The stuff, the 2 stacks of books I read about, where he becomes, he goes to the dark side and then comes back and, bangs some hot redhead, Mara Jade and like just the way he uses the Force. And this is the thing, and it's in my note, is to me, reading about Luke's character, makes me believe that the Force is so much a bigger, more powerful thing. The Force is kind of a subplot in a lot of the canon, where it's something that's spoke about a lot, but the true like power of what the Force isn't really explained. You don't really see it. Right. It's kind of like Han would say, it's like hokey tricks, shit like
simple
that.
Tricks and nonsense.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but in Expanded Universe, how like Luke finds how powerful the Force really is and what he could do through the Force, and it was very believable the way it was written in the books, and it's like, okay, it makes me believe that the Force is so much of a thing, to the point where, like, I contend, and I've said in the other podcasts, that my contention is that in Force Awakens, this is how he's using, now that he's gone and, basically he disappeared, right, to start the new Jedi Academy, and he obviously was hunting down Force artifacts, Jedi artifacts and things like that, understanding more about the Force. I want to bet he understood, like, how to be more powerful in the Force. And this is why, again, Dave Martin's opinion, why he reaches back and keeps R2-D2 shut off. Yeah. In The Force Awakens. Like, why is he in low power mode and suddenly turns on? That's because Luke suddenly flipped the switch through the Force and said, hey, it's time for the map to open up.
Right.
The same reason that Rey doesn't understand what her Force capabilities are. Like, she has dreams, obviously. She sees visions, and she uses the Force but doesn't know exactly what it is. Like, that's... If you go by Expanded Universe logic and how the Forces work, he can very easily hide her in the Force.
Yeah.
And that was a big part of Expanded Universe, was being able to hide somebody in the Force. Like, why does the Sith not see this individual? Well, it's because they train themselves how to hide themselves in the Force.
Yep. And in the Last Jedi trailer, they allude to that a little bit too. When Luke has that line, like, it's so much bigger.
So much bigger, yeah. So anyway, long story short, that's my number 3 is Luke Skywalker.
All right. My number 3 is his dad, Darth Vader.
Okay.
He is the perennial badass Dark Lord of the Sith. He is the ultimate villain, and he has that level of potential good and vulnerability, but for the most part, he is just like a fucking soul-crushing, just super badass, very intimidating figure, larger than life. And, I mean, how can you not like a character like that? He's like the J.R. Ewing, the man you love to hate sort of thing.
All right, for the younger listeners, you're going to have to go ahead and Google J.R. Ewing.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Or Google the Dallas television series, and you'll understand what he's talking about.
I used to watch that. me and my mom would watch that every Friday night for years. So
I can hear the theme song in my head right now.
Oh, nice.
I don't dare hum
it. I'll just edit that in and post. I'll just edit in the Dallas theme.
God damn it.
So, all right, I mean, I don't know how much else needs to be said about Darth Vader, honestly.
No?
I mean, look, he's right there. I have a huge statue of Darth Vader right there on the desk that we're recording on.
Power.
Yeah, I mean, I quote him, and I quote my number 2 all the time, and that is Emperor Palpatine.
Ah.
Yeah, the Emperor I find is so fascinating. Again, because we mentioned it before, like, I really like a lot of the political stuff going on through Star Wars, and not so much in Episode 1, even though that was one of the only good parts of Episode 1, was seeing Palpatine start to manipulate his way into this position of governmental power, right? Which he eventually parlayed that into just ultimate power as the Emperor, and the political intrigue of his character, and just the way he was able to deceive everybody and just, pull the wool over their eyes and work his way up to the top, all along being a Sith from the very beginning. There's still a lot of mystery to his character. I know we had the Palpatine book, or actually technically it was the Darth Plagueis book.
Right.
I don't know if that's still
non-canon.
Okay, so that's not considered canon because that came out, God, maybe a year or two before the buyout.
Great book.
Yeah.
Great book.
But
I would have loved for that to have that stand.
Yeah.
So it really would have made the Sith that much more. You would have understood it that much more. It's like, okay, I get it. I understand what the Sith are and how we got to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that's not the case.
Yeah, and I didn't realize until I read the book that Darth Plagueis was alive during Episode 1. During that time frame, Darth Plagueis was still alive, and Palpatine had Darth Maul as his secret apprentice until he finally decided to kill him, which I thought was fascinating. But yeah, love the Emperor. I quote him all the time. And I know you've also got your Emperor quotes, but
I was supposed to do the ordering in the voice. Maybe I'll save it for when we do.
Yeah.
Number 2.
But yeah, absolutely love the Emperor. I think his character is so intriguing. You notice the theme. I like a lot of bad guys. I don't know why.
Hey, you know what? My alternate Star Wars life, I'm a TIE pilot.
Yeah, of course. So
every piece of electronics I own and coffee cups and everything else has an Empire sticker on it. So that's how I know it's mine.
Yep.
So I can appreciate that.
All right, moving on to your number 2.
All right, so my number 2 is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Okay.
All right. It's probably not a huge stretch because, he's one of the another integral character in the Star Wars universe. I mean, you can probably say that with all the main characters, but what's interesting about Obi-Wan, and I kind of alluded to it, I think, in the other episode or other podcast episode was, he had, there was so much more going on with him than you really got a sight picture of.
Yeah.
It was okay, Obi-Wan Kenobi has this role in the Star Wars universe, but he was probably more powerful a Jedi than, if you only saw A New Hope and saw Obi-Wan get struck down as this old man, you really don't understand the power.
Yeah.
Of what he was as a Jedi, what the situation he was in, and having to, basically start as a Padawan, watch his mentor, or his master get killed, and then go through all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was a very, very powerful Jedi. I think he was probably the most, he had the most conflict. People think they look at Anakin and go well, there was all the conflict between the light and the dark side. I think more conflict was on Obi-Wan because he saw Anakin as basically a brother.
Yeah.
And to have to go against him, to know, I have to be on the side of right here and I have to take care of this. That to me was probably a bigger story than just Anakin's personal struggle with, knocking up some broad, and going through that bullshit.
Yeah.
But,
to play devil's advocate a little bit here, I kind of view Obi-Wan, or some people might, as being a little bit naive, thinking maybe he knew better than he actually did. And the fact that he kind of blindly followed the Jedi Order like he was, he was a Jedi Order guy through and through. There was no dissension whatsoever.
So in the prequels, especially I think there's some dialogue in episode 2 where him and Anakin are talking about it, and he doesn't necessarily buy into everything entirely, but he's not in a position where he's not Dooku, where, the character for Dooku decides that, he's well, the Jedi are fucked up. I'm going to the other side because I feel like they're on the right side of things.
Right.
Obi-Wan's not there, but I don't think the naivety, is entirely there.
See, that's not the feeling I get at all, especially with the prequels. And even, New Hope. You still get that feeling that he's still this, he's
an
got this,
ideologue.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think I would say to you, episode 1 notwithstanding, watch episode 2 and episode 3, and really watch for the dialogue that's written for Obi-Wan, and see those points that I'm talking about with, especially where his interactions with Anakin, aside from the Jedi Council, he doesn't. I don't think he buys into it entirely, but it's one of those things where, do I 100% agree with what's going on? No. Do I think the Jedi are doing what's right? I think their intentions are right, but the other side of this is fucking, what the Empire is doing is so much more wrong.
Oh, sure.
I want to be on this side of this because this is where, he came up as, a traditional Padawan. So you figure his entire life has been built to this.
Right.
So...
Which, again, that just leads me to believe that he's just kind of a naive automaton almost, where he's just, following the Jedi Order. This is the way we got to do things. This is
the only way to go. I think if that was the case, he probably would have died with the rest of them, if he was really meant to be that character.
Right.
It's extrapolation on my part, but, why would he be the guy watching the child of the Chosen One?
Sure.
Why would he be in that position? The other side of that, too, is I read the Kenobi book.
Yes, I have not. So.
And again, non-canon, but I can very easily see, if they were going to have an Obi-Wan backstory, and I think they've made some allusion to very similar storylines on, basically it's what he's doing on Tatooine. And in that book, again, this is probably where part of the EU leaks into my canonical view of some of these characters.
Yeah.
But he's spending a lot of time, he spends time with Yoda, via the Force, actually, figuring out how to finish his training and get more training, and
like a forced teleconference.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, and even to a point with Qui-Gon, because he's very conflicted about the what happened. Like when he initially gets on Tatooine, and it's like all this shit's still fresh, right? Baby Luke's with fucking Owen and Beru, and he's still trying to figure out what the fuck am I doing here?
Yeah.
Right, to the point where he's kind of like at bars and like getting into bar fights and shit like that. There's a lot of conflict within that character in the Kenobi book.
Well, sure, because you think about it, you're living the good life. You're a Jedi Master. You're just chilling with the Council and everything, and it was like all of a sudden, boom, you're in this war, and then boom, your whole fucking order is gone.
And remember, he's barely a Jedi Master, barely, because the Council really didn't approve of him taking Anakin as a Padawan.
That is true.
So, I think if I hear what you're saying about the Obi-Wan character, but again, expanded universe kind of leaking into my perception. I think he's a much, much stronger character in the universe than people give him credit for.
All right, I want to go off on one more tangent and then we'll get back on track. Did you read Heir to the Empire?
If I did, it was years ago. I haven't read it recently.
Okay. One of the very first chapters in Heir to the Empire was the ghost of Obi-Wan going back to Luke and talking to him and telling him, shit's about to go down, you have to trust in the Force and all that stuff. And he basically said to Luke, this is it. I'm becoming one with the Force after this, and this is the last time we're going to talk.
Right.
So, and then that was it. That was the last time you see Obi-Wan in ghost form. Do you think we've seen the last of Obi-Wan's ghost, even in the current movies? Or do you think there's a chance we could see an appearance by maybe Ewan McGregor as the ghost of Obi-Wan?
Well, if the internets would lead us to believe that that's potentially the case. And Ewan McGregor has made, he said he'd love to do it.
Yeah, because he did contribute that one little voice clip for Force Awakens.
Yep.
So.
It's not entirely out of the realm of possibility. Especially if Luke, at some point in his learning about the Force, has actually learned how to communicate better with them.
Yeah.
Then absolutely, I could see it being a thing. I think that's we can do a whole other podcast about that. And the reason I say that is because I think in The Last Jedi, we see Luke at the end of it. We see Luke at, he's exhausted the ability to be rational.
Yeah.
Because he's been isolated for so long. And he's seen so much bad stuff go down, especially losing all those, Jedi at the Academy. And, The Last Jedi as a mnemonic is there for a reason.
Yeah.
So.
And he looks defeated. That last scene where he says it's time for the Jedi to end, he's leaning against the rocks. He just looks defeated.
Yeah, assuming that that's where that line actually is in the trailer. Yeah. But and again, my contention is that he's choking the shit out of Rey. She's like, say, hey, welcome back to the fucking thing, and then he's like, nope.
I would love to see that. We talked about this the last episode of Project VCR, where we talked about the Star Wars celebration, and you mentioned, Luke's response to Rey coming up and holding up his lightsaber was Luke just force choking the shit out of her.
Like,
what the fuck are you? And then you just heard
You think I want to be involved in this shit anymore?
Yeah, no, I would love that. All right, getting back to the list.
All right, so
number one.
My number one is Darth Vader.
Okay.
All right, so thank you, Rogue One, for putting into perspective people that really don't understand the character and understand how much of a badass he was, for showing us a couple minutes of how much of a badass he was.
Yeah.
Take the whiny Hayden Christensen and how that was written out and all that other shit, but, Darth Vader as this is the chosen one. Right, this is the one that's supposed to bring balance to the Force, as it's alluded to, and that's we could do an entire episode just of balance.
Yeah, just that prophecy.
Exactly. So, how was he there to be the balance? Was he there to produce, Luke and Leia, or and where was he in that chain? How did people misinterpret that shit? You could go into this whole philosophical discussion about that. But the reality is that this guy. People were more afraid of Darth Vader than they were of the Emperor, of the Stormtroopers, or anything else. Whether you were an Imperial, a Moff, whether you were in the Rebellion, and everything else, this dude was the shit. Mm-hmm. And if this guy was involved in something, you were pretty afraid. And I'll reinforce that, why he makes the number one. I subscribed to all the Marvel comics. That's all now canon.
Yes.
And there's some very specific Vader stuff in there where take out, watch Rebels, watch Clone Wars. We all know Vader's a badass. Mm-hmm. It's fun to see it written like in the comic form because like some of the shit that he's doing is like the nonchalant use of the Force to just fucking annihilate people is fucking awesome. Yeah. And spoiler alert, like from the comics, he's also working around, trying to get around the Emperor. Like, he has his own vision. Yeah. Like, he's not suddenly the most obedient fucking, disciple of the Force, of the Sith here. Like, he's trying to work around and get rid of the fucking Emperor as well.
Right, and that happens even in The Force Unleashed, when he takes on that secret apprentice.
Yeah, exactly. That concept is there. It's there because he's working and he doesn't entirely trust the Emperor. Like, so he has, he's doing these things. He's got what's her name? Dr. Alfreda or something in the comics. Have you read this comic?
No.
All right. So he's got somebody that's working for him. She's like deals in droids. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's like a anti C-3PO and anti R2-D2.
No.
They're like death droids.
What?
Oh yeah, you have to.
I gotta see this.
Yeah, you have to see it.
I'm way behind on the comics.
Yeah, and I have piles of the comics. I just happen to I read through all the Vader stuff, and then again with the Marvel subscription, I just throw them money, and they keep throwing me Star Wars comic books.
Yeah.
So at some point we'll have to get all caught up on that. But it's just it's the linchpin character for the movies. Mm-hmm. He is the character. When we talk about Luke and Leia and Obi-Wan and all these primary characters, like he is the guy. Yeah. Whether it be Anakin or whether it be Darth Vader, but that is the guy. So much so that even in The Force Awakens, he's still an integral part of that because he, is allegedly the influence for Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren's, still, he's not reporting directly to Snoke. He's trying to hey, I want my grandfather to be proud of me. Yeah. So this guy, sitting right here fucking force choking us, he is the guy. Yeah. That this universe is built around.
And just one thing to add to that, you mentioned how he constantly is undermining the Emperor and trying to think of ways to get around him. He has that one line to Luke in Empire Strikes Back. You can destroy the Emperor. He has foreseen this. Join me, and we can rule the galaxy as father and son.
Exactly.
So he had an agenda from the very beginning.
Absolutely. He wasn't some obedient, just strictly obedient dog to do the Emperor's bidding. He had all these things going around, going off on the side, and in the comic book series, they really explore that and do a good job of it.
Yep. All right. And with that, my number one, probably not too surprising, is Luke Skywalker.
There you go.
He was the perennial hero. He was, from the earliest time that I can remember, the number one, superhero almost. Not really a superhero, but the hero that I knew. He was the ultimate good guy. He was the guy that you wanted to see win in the end because, these were our movies back in those days. But I absolutely loved Luke Skywalker. I can certainly see why people dislike him, especially in episode 4. I was going to Tashi Station to pick some power converters.
Well, what's the best is too, they made him, he was even more whiny, in the scenes that they cut out of the movie. There's some of the stuff, the Tashi Station, stuff where he's sitting with his friends and really whining about it.
Yeah, with Biggs and all that.
Yeah, they had a lot more of that in the movie.
Yeah.
And honestly, I didn't, I don't know, maybe it was my age, but I didn't really see it as much as
No.
It made sense to me. It just, I think as you get older, what's this guy, 18, 19 years old? What the fuck are you whining like that for?
Death Star being blown up by a bunch of fucking teenagers.
That's right.
But, I always loved Luke. I always wanted to be Luke. I was Luke for multiple Halloweens, had the green lightsaber, the black cloak,
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything. It was... And I think it was Return of the Jedi is what really made me love Luke, even though I liked him in the original. I didn't see the whiny version of Luke until later in life. When I'm watching it again, I'm like, he was kind of a little bitch, wasn't he? Mm-hmm. So, but I always loved Luke. I know they're probably going to kill him off in this new trilogy. But, I always have hopes that he'll kind of still have a massive role and he'll have at least one more big fight scene and one more big glory scene before they...
I don't think you can have Star Wars without Skywalker. I don't think they have the balls to do it.
Yeah.
This is, in fact, as I was making this point with Kathy, with my wife the other day, because Rey's her absolute favorite character.
Sure.
She has her theories about who Rey is.
Mm-hmm.
And, to me, Rey is a Skywalker.
Right.
The direct descendant. We could talk at length about how I think we get there, but it's one of those things where, I don't think that this story can exist in some form or fashion without Skywalker. we've lost Anakin. Mm-hmm. So now if we're going through the descendants, Ren is kind of a descendant.
Right.
But I don't think you see it that way. I think Luke has to have, the bloodline has to continue, and I think it's through Rey.
Sure. Well, but I mean, there's always that chance that Kylo Ren can either flip back to the light side and not die.
Even still, though, it's he's kind of a solo, not as, you're going to look at him more of a solo than you are, especially as a Force user.
Well, because he hangs his hat more on the Skywalker legacy than anything when he worships Darth Vader,
Well, let's think of it logically. Like Star Wars logic here.
Okay.
Leia's Force ability is almost non-existent.
Pretty much.
Whether she made a conscious decision to do it or not.
And I'm sure that's a big part of it.
And Solo is not a Force user.
No.
Despite what some people would pretend.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe him to be a Force user. He's just really fucking lucky.
Yeah.
So, those two things notwithstanding, that would make Ren a very, okay, yes, he can derive his power because he is one of the Skywalker line. However, if you're writing that story and you have to explain that every time, it doesn't make sense. If you got a direct descendant from Luke Skywalker, the fucking man, it's a lot easier to make that into a story. So unfortunately, because of where we are in this movie series, I have to look at it that way. I'm like, I know what I would like to have happen, and some of those things I'm reinforcing by putting it in that context. What's the easiest way to make the story work? It's probably going to be to make Rey a Skywalker. And rather than introducing a couple of brand new characters that, hey, these are Rey's parents, kind of like the Poe Dameron character, because we know who his parents are.
Right. Yeah,
because of the comic books.
Yeah.
Where are they in this movie series?
Yeah, it just seems like such an easy out. It seems like it's so obvious that they wouldn't do it,
Oh, yeah. To me, you have to. Because you're taking the Skywalkers and now making it so much bigger. Because now, again, think of it, this empowerment, the women empowerment. This was what you wish Leia was if she had used her Force ability, if she had kind of harnessed that. Now you have that. So you have this, fiercely independent, somebody who had to take care of herself person who now is awakened into her Jedi ability. She is the new Jedi. What's going to happen from that? That's who knows? That's where we're at. It's leaving us to wonder and have these debates about.
Yeah.
But
well, I will say this led to some very interesting discussion. And again, if any listeners have any feedback, positive or negative, you can hit us up on any of our social media and tell us what your top 5 characters are. Again, this universe is so vast. I had so many honorable mentions too, people that almost made the cut. People like, I don't know if you remember Talon Card from the original Expanded Universe.
Oh, wow.
But he was introduced in the Heir to the Empire series, and he was a mainstay throughout the whole course. I loved him. He was kind of like a Han Solo-ish kind of smuggler guy, but he was still friends with our core characters. Mara Jade. She was pretty cool. The Solo kids. They all had their redeeming qualities.
Yeah, Jaina and Jason.
Yeah, and then Anakin. But, so many characters from the Expanded Universe. Even characters that we didn't touch on, so neither of us talked about Han Solo or Chewbacca.
Well, I had characters deserving mention, and Mara Jade was one of them. Han Solo, obviously.
Yeah.
And Chewbacca. There's 5 is not enough. Honestly, 5 doesn't even breach the core characters. It's.
Hey, well, it was your idea, by the way, to do
because 5. Look at what time it is. Look at how far into this we are. If we had more people, would we have talked less about our selections?
Probably not. Probably not. So we either would have had to have no other topics this episode, or just stuck with the 5. But, I would love to hear other people's opinions as to what their favorite characters are. Another area where a lot of characters could be taken from that I almost took characters from was the Old Republic, the massive multiplayer online RPG, which we will get into at some point. I am determined to make you play that with me for at least a few hours. Because
you have to twist my arm to play a Star Wars game, but
it probably won't have to be much twisting, but still, it's going to happen.
I played it for a minute.
Well, no, you see, you have to get the full experience playing with somebody and more than likely, we're just going to set up 2 computers in here. We're just going to play side by side. But
just everyone gets to listen to me get my ass beat.
Yeah. Well, it's not a... Anyway, we'll get into that at a later time. So, that's the... Let us know what you guys think. And social media time. I see you jotting down a whole bunch of notes over there.
Yeah, well, I didn't write this stuff down the last time. You would think, guess what, this week you're going to write the stuff down.
So you had a whole week to prepare, a week to get your shit together, and you still couldn't do it.
Yeah, Jason. Let me tell you. It's all about content here.
Yeah.
All things Star Wars pod@gmail.com is our email address.
God, you'd think that he didn't actually create the stuff. or register any of these accounts.
Hey, listen, yes, please give us your feedback on Instagram, on Twitter. Instagram, we're at All Things Star Wars Pod. Dead air. Sorry, lost my train of thought. And then on Twitter, we're at All Things SW Pod. Yeah, please. We're on the Instagram at least a few times a day.
Yep.
I'm on there anyway. My personal Instagram is at PhillyDave75. Like I said, if you're interested in Philly sports, Star Wars, pictures of the moon, flowers, other such nonsense, at PhillyDave75. And yeah, please, all of the feedback. Dave's voice is annoying. All right, well, I'll do a voice the entire time. Yeah,
speaking his emperor voice for the entire episode,
or I'll do my Hank Hill. Maybe I'll save that for next week. We'll do a whole segment in my Hank Hill voice, and we'll see if anybody wants to jump off a bridge after that.
So yeah, I don't think we have a topic picked out yet for next week, but keep an eye on Instagram, and we'll try to post something ahead of time, give you a chance to research before you listen to that episode. And for me, I'm at Darth Roscom on Twitter, and all of our social media information you can find in the show description. I think that's it.
Yep, I think that's it.
Yeah, all right, well, thanks again, Dave. It was fun.
Thank you, Jason.
And yeah, hopefully we didn't get too deep into the weeds this time around.
That's all right. Well, and we'll have a better toast for the next one, too.
Yeah, so
because it's Jason's turn.
It will be my turn. So, all right, well, until next time, Dave, may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
All right, thanks, everyone. See ya.
Let's see some of your moves.
Free and it feels so right. Oh, time to do the things I like. Gonna see a princess, everything's alright. Oh, no job but an answer to. Ain't a fixture in the palace too. No, and since the carbonite's off me, I'm living life now that I'm free. Yeah, told me get myself together. Now I got myself together. Now I made it through the weather. Better days are gonna get better. I'm so happy the carbonite is gone. I'm moving on. I'm so happy that it's over now. The pain is gone. I'm putting on my shades to cover up my eyes. I'm jumping in my ride. I'm heading out tonight. I'm solo. I'm hunting solo. I'm hunting solo. I'm hunting solo. Solo. I'm picking up my plaster, put it on my side. I'm jumping in my Falcon, whoop me on my side. I'm solo. I'm hunting solo. I'm hunting solo. I'm hunting solo. Solo.
Okay, I can see you have some skills, but now it's my turn.
Now I'm feeling how I should. Join the alliance, it feels so good. Oh, stop feeling misunderstood. Back in the game, who knew I would? Oh, so flat time I spread my wings. Loving myself makes me wanna sing. Oh, yeah. Told me get my act together. Now I got my act together. Yeah. Now I made it through the weather. Better days are gonna get better. I'm so happy the carbonite is gone. I'm moving on. I'm so happy that it's over now. The pain is gone. I'm putting on my shades to cover up my eyes. I'm jumping in my ride. I'm heading out tonight. I'm solo. I'm hunting solo. I'm hunting solo. I'm hunting solo. Solo. Feeling like a star. You can't stop my shine. I'm loving Cloud City. My head's in the sky. I'm solo. I'm hunting solo. I'm hunting solo. I'm hunting solo. Solo. no more. I'm putting on my shades to cover up my eyes. I'm jumping in my ride. I'm heading out tonight. I'm solo. I'm Han Solo. I'm Han Solo. I'm Han Solo. Solo. Feeling like a star. You can't stop my shine. I'm loving Cloud City. My head's in the sky. I'm solo. I'm Han Solo. I'm Han Solo. I'm Han Solo. Solo.
You got a lot of nerve coming in my house looking that good.